Okay, let's go.
Bring, hold on one second. Let me bring, let's see. That, like that? Is that good?
Give me
Good as it's gonna
once.
get it.
Oh, I guess it's a bad time to leave the sheet.
What's that?
I was just about to get up so I can get some stats and close the door, but I guess it's a bad time to leave my seat since I just got framed up. Let me go because I need the worst thing is to not have stats. Ugh. All right, let's go because I have no idea how long this air card will last. Yeah.
Good for me, Omar. I would, okay.
Yep, we're ready. The first chapter of the Tua Tagovailoa saga is in the books. Hopefully, I said the name right. Jesus, it's going to be a
Did
long.
it. Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa. Tua joined David Woodley as the only rookie starting quarterback in Miami Dolphins history to win their first game, defeating the Los Angeles Rams 28-17. But saying Tua beat the Rams would be kind of distorting the truth. The Miami Dolphins special teams unit, they had a Jakeem Grant score of 85 yards on a punt return, and the Dolphins defense scored a touchdown and set up another two that allowed Miami to produce that victory, which actually, coincidentally, gets Brian Flores to a winning record for the first time in his NFL career. Short career. I am Omar Kelly, Sun Sentinel columnist. This is Dave Hyde, Sun Sentinel columnist. And you are excited Dolphin fans, kind of disappointed from the opener, but this Dolphins team continues to play good football, good team football. Dave, are you buying them as a playoff contender?
Team football. You sound like Brian Flores now. Of course, Brian Flores sounded like Joe Philbin, sounded like Tony Soprano, sounded like Nick Saban. They all stress the team, all these coaches, but we know you need that quarterback. Am I a playoff team? No, I'm not. I'm not buying yet. You're seeing elements of it, and certainly I've come a long way in my thoughts on it from the start of the year, but um, you know, I haven't seen them being able to stop the run the ball. Now with Tua coming in, you need to see more from him than obviously you did the first game. If we're talking playoffs,
I would agree with you. I still need to see two elements. These are the two things that make me believe they are fugazi, fake, and not really a contender. One, they can't run the football, and that's going to continue to be an issue, especially with Myles Gaskin right now, sidelined by a knee injury for two weeks, if not a month. And they can't stop the run. That's an issue that hasn't reared its ugly head primarily because they've had such
all right.
gigantic leads in their victories. In their four victories, they've had gigantic leads. Teams really have forced themselves to become one-dimensional. So it's hard to assess where they are, but I think that if they can begin to run the ball effectively and stop the run, we might have a chance, Dave. Well, let's
All
get to
right.
some
First
news.
question.
No, let's get to some news here, Dave. The Dolphins
Let's
made two
go.
trades at the trade deadline. First, they traded away Isaiah Ford, who to the Patriots for a 2021 seventh round pick, 2022 seventh round pick. I sped it up a year. And also, they kind of traded for a running back, DeAndre Washington, adding to this crowded stable of running backs. And I can kind of understand why they made that swap of sixth and seventh round picks with the Kansas City Chiefs. Right now, the Dolphins running game sucks. And there's no other way that you can kind of describe it other than it sucks. So do these
Yeah,
trades
and
make
the one runner who's had some success, moderate success, Myles Gaskin. Now he's out for a few weeks. So, look, that's what that all is about. They're looking for anything to, carry this next stretch of games, help them a little bit. And they didn't, it tells you what they got in the offseason when they spent money on free agent running backs. So they didn't get what they thought. And now they have to go out and make a trade, and good for them. I mean, maybe this helps, but because from what we've seen on the roster, beyond Myles Gaskin, there's not a lot there.
Well, based on the production, I wouldn't necessarily blame it on the backs, but we'll get into that later in the show. Another element of news is Austin Jackson, their starting left tackle from earlier this season, the 18th pick in the draft. He's back at practice today. He's eligible to come off IR. It's probably going to be a 2-week process for him to see where he is with that foot injury. And also Antonio Callaway, former University of Florida receiver, former Cleveland Browns starter. He is actually eligible to come off his 8-game suspension. So the Dolphins are getting talent back, Dave.
Well, Callaway is a talent. His questions about him had nothing to do with physical. More, can he mentally stay focused to get on the field? I'm curious your thoughts on trading to the Patriots, though. That's a rare move. I think you have to go back to Wes Welker to the last time these two teams made a deal.
I believe they had a trade with the Patriots when they traded for Leonte Carew. I'm not 1,000% sure in the draft. Come on, Brian Flores comes from the Patriots. Everybody gets their panties rough in a bunch. It's going to be all right. I would have loved to have traded for the Jets for Le'Veon Bell, so I'm not scared to trade within the division. Our first question comes from Reasons Burner, who asks, what did you see in this game that gives you hope for the team this season, and what did you see that worries you, Dave?
Well, everything is obvious, very transparent, the pluses and the minuses with this team. And the plus, obviously, the defense. The last 3 weeks, and I thought this week against the Rams really validated and gave some credibility to what they'd done the previous 2 weeks to a beaten-up Rams team and a Jets team that, come on, they're laughable, aren't they? They're laughable, the Jets.
Yeah, beating up 49ers team to correct you, but yes.
You're allowed to laugh if you're a Dolphin fan. You're allowed to laugh. But the Rams have a good offense, and Jared Goff looked like a boy lost in the airport in that game, didn't he? Like a little kid, he didn't know where to turn, where to go, where to find help. And you got credit the Dolphins defense. And you're seeing when Byron Jones returned healthy and on this defense, what Brian Flores can do with 2 lockdown corners, what freedom it gives him with the rest of the defense to do. And give credit. Emmanuel Ogbah is getting the kind of pass rush you haven't seen for a while from a defensive end on this team. So that's the positive. The defense, obviously, last few weeks has turned into a weapon. The negative is, the offense, right? That 93 yards passing, 8 first downs. Yes, it was Tua's first start, and no one's jumping too hard on being critical or anything like that. But let's.
According to Chan-Gailey, they dialed it back. According to Chan-Gailey, they dialed it back, Dave. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this running game, especially with Myles Gaskin sideline. But to me, the defense is a positive. The run game is a negative. There are just no holes there. We're talking about the same issue that we had last year, where the run game, it stinks and it's inefficient. It's gaining you yards, but it's not necessarily being productive. Only the Indianapolis Colts have a worse rushing attack than the Miami Dolphins, and that's troubling. Randy has our next question.
Let me give it to you. You love true or false questions, Omar. This Dolphins team is a contender and not a pretender, considering only losses have come to New England, Buffalo, and the Seahawks.
I wouldn't necessarily say they're a contender, but I think people don't give enough credit to their losses. The first loss of the season was to Cam Newton, and he surprisingly, in an offense that the Dolphins just weren't prepared for. And the Patriots had a lot of surprises for you. Buffalo Bills, I would argue, are one of the top 6 teams in the NFL right now. Seattle Seahawks are one of the top 6 teams in the NFL right now. So and the Dolphins were blown out in any of those losses. So I think that there's no shame in any of their losses. I would like to see them go on the road and beat the Arizona Cardinals, probably a 5-2 team, probably before I can sit here and say, hey, they're real.
Yeah, my thoughts would be more than the losses, the wins. Who have they beat? And that's why the Rams win meant something to me. That was a good team. And you look at their previous loss, the Jets, the Jaguars, and again a beat up San Francisco team. And so beating the Rams, that had played well this year, that said something about the Dolphins and I'm not see. There has to be some middle ground between a contender and a pretender. They're trending toward contender, and away from pretender. But they're not there yet. Contender meaning what? Contending for a playoff spot. They're trending there. They're not contending for a lot more than that right now. All right. Are you there, Omar?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, Chris Anderson wants to know, Omar, when was the last time the Dolphins had a defense like this?
I think you'd have to turn off. Oh. I think you'd have to go with Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Sam Madison, Patrick Surtain, back in the Dave Wanstead days. I know people don't want to give Dave credit for what he did. I mean, 10-6. We could dream of 10-6 a decade later, if not more. I think that they have a lot of components to be a very good defense. Right now, they're the #1 defense in terms of points scored, and you got to give them credit. I am not a big believer in this scheme, but right now the scheme is delivering, especially when they have leads. They're playing good team ball in terms of special teams, field position. They don't beat themselves with penalty. Think about it. The last time you saw a holding call from the Miami Dolphins. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, this defense is so great. This defense is clamped down. It's dynamic. But I will say that this is a good team that's playing collective football.
Yeah, I say the same thing, Omar. The only thing to add to that is they've had some top 10 defenses, 2012, 2013. Both those years they had top 10 defense, 7th and 8th in points scored. So it's not like their defense has been awful for this long stretch.
It's usually the offense.
And it's been a lot of time it's the offense. And that's why we talked about the quarterback so much, right? All right, Omar. Silk Tank 23 asks, can the Dolphins defense sustain this high level of performance the rest of the season?
I think they can. I really don't see much slippage coming from some of their top players. Xavier Howard, he's actually getting better. I think he's getting his explosion and his quickness and his recovery speed. Byron Jones is getting healthier, and he's playing like an upper echelon cornerback, which he's being paid to. I make this argument all the time. There is nobody on this team that's playing better and more consistent on a week-to-week basis than Eric Rowe. He is locking down his tight end, and he's playing his role in this defense. And Emmanuel Ogbah, and then Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy just continues to find the football, and Emmanuel Ogbah's the threat on the edge. So, yes, this defense, I think that they can sustain the high level of performance, as long as they don't suffer injuries.
Yeah, well, as with most teams, especially in the interior of the line, that's the underbelly that some teams are going to test, I think. But so Tua Tagovailoa completed 12 of 22 passes for 93 yards, a touchdown in his first ever NFL start. He was sacked one time, fumbled on the hit, first time he went back to pass. He finished the game with an 80.3 passer rating. But the nature of the game didn't give us much to evaluate because my offense dialed it down. Training wheels on for Tua. What should we take away from his first start?
I think
The
we should take.
RPO was a bigger element.
I think we should take away the
Go
fact
ahead.
that RPO is going to be a huge element of this offense. I like that. Part of the reason why I really like Tua going back to the 2019 season, tank for Tua, was because I saw in Alabama's offense the accuracy and timing and precision that he made on his throws. I saw some of the elements of the RPO, which I still got a lot of research to understand, and the slant throws. They're just on the money, and you can eat off 12 slant throws a game, and that would be sufficient for your offense, for your passing game. And so it looked like a ready made top 16 offense. And I didn't see anything in game one that made me disbelieve that. I will also make the point of I think Tua has good pocket presence. Not great, but good. We didn't see it in the first game, but I think we're going to have the potential to see it. Now, what we have to worry about is teams counteracting what Tua likes to do, because the Rams, they crowded the left side of the field. They blitz on the left side of the field. They said, Tua, if you're going to beat us, you're not going to beat us going left. And he's a left-handed quarterback, so that's natural for him. So they got to understand teams are going to try to take away what his strengths are, and he's got to compensate for it.
Yeah, and the other, it's so hard to judge what we saw in that. Either, to me, he didn't look comfortable in the game. He didn't look comfortable back there. And you look at the passes he was asked to make. I think he only threw downfield a couple times. I mean, he was one, and one is a nice ball to Jakeem Grant on the touchdown drive of 33 yards. So a lot of it was just little short dump offs, and it was really hard to get a measure. Now,
Chan Gailey said that was a major component of their game plan because of Aaron Donald. And let's be fair and reasonable here.
I get that. I get that. But if we're talking judging Tua, it was really hard to in that game, unless you really want to. Pull a back muscle, extending yourself. And boy, that slant touchdown, that was one of the greatest passes. I heard so much about that slant because everybody had been waiting for that. It was a nice throw, a nice NFL good quarterback throw. But it's hard to, let's, if this was Tyler Thigpen or any of the other 21 quarterbacks we've been waiting since Marino, we'd be saying, If it was Ryan Fitzpatrick, we'd be saying, "Hey, it's time for Tua," right? So need to see more. We need
you made excellent points, Dave, because I believe Tyler Thigpen delivered that exact performance probably in his first start, and I'm not necessarily certain that he produced a win. But yeah, you're right. And here's my thing about Tua. And I wrote a column about this in the Sun Sentinel that I hope all the fans of X's and Omar and readers of the Sun Sentinel will go check out. We have to create acceptable, normal, not Hall of Fame standards for Tua. I mean, what do we expect from his rookie season? And not just that, but what do we expect from his first 3 years in his career? What is reasonable? And I've done a lot of thought to this. I think the fair quarterbacks to sort of compare him to Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, not other than his peers, Kyler Murray, and then I'm gonna throw in Ryan Tannehill, because we complained about Ryan Tannehill for 7 seasons. We got to see better than that. I mean, I would hope to think that he can outperform Ryan Tannehill in his rookie season, considering Ryan Tannehill only started 19 games at Texas A&M before he actually became the Dolphins starting quarterback. Tua is a much more polished, experienced, savvy, accurate quarterback. So the hope is, yeah, he's had time to learn the offense. Let's deliver an 85 quarterback rating for the season, Dave. You okay with that?
85, Omar. That is like bottom third. That's the depths of the league. To me, the comparison, and it's going to be the comparison throughout his career, certainly for the first couple years, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert has stepped into the Chargers in a difficult situation, and he's putting up 30 points a game with that offense. He's given them double-digit lead that in the second half, 17 points the last 2 week leads in the second half, that the defense and the complete lack of a running game with the Chargers cannot hold. And so But to me, that's obvious. The Dolphins could have taken Herbert or Tua. They took Tua, so they think he's better. And let's see how that plays
Are
out.
you having buyer's remorse, Dave?
Well, it's too early to have buyer's remorse. I will say this. If Tua had the stats and the game and was making the throws Justin Herbert is, Omar, you would be a puddle of goo by now over your elation for Tua and what he's going to mean for the future, right? I mean, let's be honest. If Tua was playing like Herbert, everybody'd be elated, and maybe he gets there. Maybe that's coming, and so we'll see. But that's to me that is the natural comparison to make for Tua as a rookie.
Our next question comes from PC Medic, who wants to know, would we have had more yards, first downs, and points if Ryan Fitzpatrick was under center on Sunday, Dave?
I think you would. I mean, it's hard to say you'd have any less. 93 yards passing, 8 first downs. Ultimately, the offense was responsible for 7 points. I mean, even that Christian Wilkins intercepted the pass at the 33-yard line.
No, that's when they put him at the 1-yard line. They actually scored 14 points. The touchdown to Tua when Christian Wilkins gave them the ball at the 13-yard line. And then Kyle Van Noy's fumble return put him at the 1-yard line. They punched it in. So, yeah, the offense was responsible for 14 points and 14 yards.
You're giving the offense that 1-yard punch in, saying they're responsible for that? Back to the question. I think, yes, in that game, in that start, Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's hard to say he would have had any less.
Yeah.
I mean, thrown less than 3 yards past.
Absolutely. That question is absolutely. I've said this from the minute Tua became the starter, and I stand by this. Tua did not earn the job. He was given the job. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the better quarterback. However, it does not benefit the franchise. It benefits the franchise to play Tua. That's what we're doing. And as Dave says, even though Dave says we can go back and we can Josh Rosen Tua, I do not. It's a 9-game commitment moving forward here. We're not turning back, Dave.
Yeah. Okay. Let me stress one thing on that decision. Ryan Tannehill was probably having a career year, or at least right on the edge of one. He was the 17th rated quarterback and a career year.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Move on. Okay, Eddie T has a good one. Instead of trades, does Jordan Howard need to be activated to give the offense some power, run looks, and help the RPO disguises?
I don't think you have any choice but to activate Jordan Howard this week. Right now, your only backs are pretty much with Myles Gaskin sideline. You got Matt Berdea and Patrick Laird and Selvin. Don't even know his first name because he's not really that much of a factor. The rookie from Washington. Yes, Jordan Howard's been a massive disappointment so far. He's averaging 0.8 yards on 18 attempts. He scored 3 touchdowns. He is a better player than what he's shown. He's had, a month to rest up, probably run the scout team deep offense and get healthy and get hungry. Let's put him back out there and see what he can do, Dave.
He's been humbled. If you can humble him, now paid him. And when he averaged over 5 yards a carry in Philadelphia last year. It's hard to understand what's going on there with him.
It's not hard to understand. It's not hard to understand. And in fact, our next question, which comes from King of Detroit, pretty much gets into it. How would you grade the trench play on both sides of the ball?
That's gets to the crux of sort of your thoughts of where the Dolphin season is going to go. The trench play, the offensive line hasn't been a disaster that it could have been at the start of the year with so many, and we've been through this, so many new faces, so many young faces. Then you lose Austin Jackson. But if we're talking for them to take the next step, they're not there. They're not there. Omar, you talked about putting holes on the offensive line. There's not enough of that. And so as a physical force, the offense isn't there now. Now that they've played together for half a season, can they make the step in the second half? That's the question with them. And let's face it, the defensive line, the sacks are starting to come. You're seeing Ogba, you saw Shaq Lawson last game um, make some impactful plays, big plays, game-turning plays. The question is, when a team decides, and I'm surprised the Rams didn't do this. They were averaging over 6 yards a carry in the first half, and yet Sean McVay just falls in love with throwing the ball, and
he's got what I call Adam Gase disease.
At some point, somebody's going to test the Dolphins defense, which has given up the second most rushing yards this year, average per game. So maybe it's this week. Arizona has a good running game. Now, all that has to be factored in today's NFL. A lot of times when teams get up, they start running the ball, and that gives them rushing yards. When you get behind a lot, you're throwing the ball all the time. So, but trench play needs some work.
Definitely, I think needs some work is being generous to trench play. They are not good in the trenches. Now, pass protection, the offensive line, they're above average. Probably, I would say, top 10 in the league. These 340-pound offensive linemen are hard to move. That was by design. But now, in the run game, hold your nose bad. And in fact, it bothers me when I see Solomon Kinley and Eric Flowers pulling and trying to turn the corner, because they're getting nowhere. It's just not a good style or an approach for this team. And I know that we're at midseason now. We shouldn't be experimenting. We should have a run game identity, and you still don't have one. And that's troubling to me. And on the defensive line, I agree with you. They're ranked 29th. They're allowing 4.9 yards per carry. That's way too much. They're only ahead of Dallas, Houston, and Cincinnati, who we'll all agree are bad teams. When you're ranked down there with bad teams in important statistics like that, that's not a good thing. All right, the Arizona Cardinals are embarking on a franchise transformation, just like the Miami Dolphins, and it happens to be one that's kind of going quite well. If you look at it, in one season, Cliff Kingsbury has turned the Cardinals into an NFC playoff contender. The trade that brought DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona gives Kyler Murray two generous weapons. When you pair him with Larry Fitzgerald, who has evolved into one dynamic slot receiver, and then this guy, Dolphins might know, named Kenyon Drake, who just so happens to be, at 500 yards midway through the season. It's amazing when you give him touches. Lo and behold, who would have thought that? Does Miami have the defensive pieces to contain Arizona's offense?
Yeah, Miami has the defensive pieces. Yes, they've shown that. They've shown that across the secondary, they have impactful players, and they're getting the pass rush that they need to. So containing the pass offense, yes. Now, Arizona's tied with Baltimore, 29 points a game, number one in the league. The Dolphins are the best scoring defense in the league. So this is going to be a fun matchup on Sunday, I think. You got a defense coming into its own, and an offense that knows where it wants to go to score a lot of points. And so I'm really looking forward to this match. It should be a fun one.
Let me ask you this question, Dave. Kenyon Drake finally gets a chance at maybe revenge game for the Dolphins that traded him, unloaded him, could never figure out how to use him, couldn't always complain about his personality and his demeanor and his moodiness. And Kenyon Drake is playing, is working with a knee injury right now. He suffered that in their win over the Seahawks. Do you play if you're Kenyon Drake? Do you push it, Dave?
You got to be healthy to play, enough to play. I mean, do you play through a little pain to play against the Dolphins? Maybe a little more than you might. Yeah, as long as you're not, let's be honest, suffering you're threatening anything serious. But look, when I like Kenyon Drake as a change of pace guy. Now he's shown he can be in much more than that in Arizona's offense, and so I'd like to see him play. I'd like to see what he can do and what because the Dolphins defense, the one component they got to show is they can stop a rushing game when the team decides we're going to rush first and pass second until you can stop us.
Omar asks, you got it, Dave?
Yeah, the Dolphins struggled in the first 2 weeks with mobile quarterbacks. Will they face similar struggles against Kyler Murray?
Absolutely, Dave. Absolutely. This defense, and as impressive as they are, and let me say, they evolve and change every week, which was a calling card of the Patriots defense, and Brian Flores brings that here in the scheme, and, they evolve based on their opponent. But the one thing that they've shown you is when they have to have a guy shadow the quarterback, it doesn't end up well for them. Cam Newton destroyed them. Josh Allen has consistently had, given them fits. This is going to be a game where if I had to guess, I'm putting Jerome Baker as a spy on the quarterback. That prevents Jerome from sort of roaming the field and doing his thing in coverage or blitzing, and I think he's a great blitzer. The question is, can they confuse Kyler Murray as a passer enough to negate his scrambling?
Yeah, Kyler Murray's averaging 62 yards a game rushing. And so that tells you the element of his game beyond the pass. He's 13 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So, pretty good passer, 90.8 rating. But the 62 yards rushing is really what makes him, a two-pronged threat. And look who the Dolphins have beat during this great stretch of defense. They beat Joe Flacco, who, he ain't running anywhere. Sam Darnold, not Mr. Gift of mobility, and
Gardner Minshew.
So and last week Jared Goff, another pocket passer. So, but again, the defense is different than right now because of Byron Jones than they when they started the season. So I'm curious. Again, this gets into the element of number one scoring defense against number one scoring offense, and right to that, one of the major questions, as you said, is the Dolphins, do they shadow Murray? Do they confuse him as he's trying to pass? What's the game going into that one?
Yeah.
Okay. William wants to know, Omar, can our defense stop DeAndre Hopkins? He gave us a lot of trouble when he was with the Texans.
No. And I got a lot.
You got a top cornerback right there.
I got two.
Right? You got Byron Jones.
I got two. You're not gonna shadow DeAndre Hopkins with your best cornerback. You got to shadow him, and you got to put a safety over the top of him. Dolphins haven't done that much. This is going to force them to change who they are as a defense. And then you do that, and underneath is susceptible. Kenyon Drake to catch passes if he plays for the scrambling of Murray. Because now you have a guy shadowing, have a guy over the top of DeAndre Hopkins, and then you have a guy spying the quarterback. Somebody's got to be open, Dave. Somebody's got to be open. So
yeah, I think they will try to shadow him initially and challenge Xavier Howard and/or Byron Jones, however they want to work it. Because we saw Brian Flores loves straight man-to-man. We're seeing that. We're seeing he loves lining them up and
they're playing a lot of zone right now. They're playing a lot of zone. So I mean, they killed the Rams with zone. I mean, they basically disguised it and dropped back in zone and basically told Jared Goff, guess what's happening? And it led to a lot of turnovers. So This to me is probably the ultimate defensive test for Brian Flores for me. I mean, I am not a believer in this defense, but Brian Flores could potentially make me a believer in this defense. Not the personnel. I like the personnel. I just don't believe in this scheme because it goes against a lot of things I fundamentally believe about football. But I can be sold. I can admit if you figure out a way to contain Kyler Murray and manage this dynamic receiving duo, I can buy in. I can say, hey, I like the scheme.
I think we'll see a lot of dime in this game. This is a perfect, and that's Brian. Number one scoring defense, Omar. They haven't won you over. What do they have to do? What do they have to do? All right.
Upset some good offense.
Has our final question. Rob Tavares has our final question, Omar. What's the most important thing Tua needs to get better at going into the game versus the Cardinals?
I'm going to say pocket presence. And I know he's got it. I know he's got the ability to recognize what defenses are throwing at him. And Vance Joseph, you remember that guy, Dave? He's a guy who throws exotic blitzes and pressures and package, kind of similar to what Brian Flores does at the opponent. I just don't necessarily believe in the Rams defensive personnel. I mean, not the Rams, in the Cardinals defensive personnel. So I would say if Tua can establish some pocket presence and maneuverability to slide into the pocket and find receivers downfield, I think that would help him take his game to the next level. And then, obviously, I want to see some run after catch yards. We haven't seen those at all this season. We're 7 games in. When's the last time you've seen run after catch yards, Dave, from the Miami Dolphins?
Yeah, we're not seeing, not in the last few games, I don't think. Now, I agree. You know what? I just want to see him more comfortable, and maybe that's your pocket presence. And I want them to open up the offense more. Everybody says, well, they're leading so much, they weren't going to open up the offense. Well, you could argue the opposite. They're leading so much, let them get some practice series almost in there where he could open up the offense. So I want him.
Dave. Tell him, Dave. All this talk about, they dialed it down, dialed it back. No, they sucked. They sucked. You don't dial it down on third downs, and you were what on third downs? They were horrible on third downs. So Don't sit here and claim like, we dialed it down. We didn't want to show too much. You've got a quarterback who's played 60 snaps in an NFL game. You telling me you're gonna dial it down and not allow him to sort of get it comfortable? I call hogwash on that one. All right, David, it's prediction time.
Yeah, Omar.
It's prediction time, Dave. I'm going to go first. I am actually not going to buy into this Dolphins team. I'm going to continue to add motivation. I'm going to keep picking against them. I don't think they'll go on the road in Arizona and take down the high-scoring offense. I want this defense to shut me up and show me that they're for real. And I would love to see them actually put together a respectable running game against my favorite friend, Jordan Phillips, Dave. Jordan Phillips.
we got some ex-Dolphins out there. Yeah. I'm unfortunately with this in a way in that I think the defense will have some success. But the Cardinals have a pretty good defense themselves. So I'm picking 21-20 Cardinals. The Dolphins will have their chances, though. For as good as the Cardinals' record is, and we went through the Dolphins' schedule, who they've beaten. The Cardinals really have beaten 2 teams. San Francisco at the start of the year when San Francisco was healthy, and the Seahawks, they come from behind in their previous game last Thursday. And you look at everybody else in the middle, and it's the Jets and the Jags, and it's just not good teams. So
hey, those are the teams Dolphins beat, Dave.
Yes, sir. But we've said about the Dolphins, well, we need to see a quality win, and the Rams was a quality win. That was a nice win for them.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. As I said, I want this defense to prove to me they are for real, and we shall see on Sunday. Thank you for watching X's and Omar. Omar Kelly and Dave Hyde here. You can find X's and Omar on the Sun Sentinel website. It plays on YouTube for all my European fans. You can always find it there on YouTube. And we're also on the Spotify and Google playlist. So you can find X's Omar on the Apple podcast as well. Thank you for joining us, always Wednesday at noon. Yeah, for segment 3, uh, Cardinals should challenge Dolphins defense. Cardinals offense should challenge Dolphins. No, just